Let's talk about Citrus County airports and oversight, or the lack of. You see, Citrus County has two government owned airports, Crystal River and Inverness. And in that, they are run by what's called a fixed base operator. Those fixed base operators are a public private partnership. So basically, the county owns it, the private sector runs it. And here is the duty of the county. The county has an aviation section. That aviation section is supposed to provide oversight, meaning he looks over the airports and makes sure they're following their contracts. He looks over the state and federal requirements that the county is responsible for and makes sure that they're doing their job right. And the lights are functioning. The aspect of pavement is the right pavement. The markings on the runway stay within standards, or any changes that come down from the FAA or the state gets quickly implemented. And they're failing. So, for years, the aviation section has failed Citrus County. So, if you look at their agendas, if you can find them, the agenda quite often will have a major project that keeps getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So every meeting, they basically say, well, we're going to hold off on it for this meeting. We'll talk about next meeting, and then they don't. So go back and look at the agendas if you can find them and look at what you see with that. The lack of oversight. And where's the aviation board to ask, why is this being held up? What is the requirement for us to get this done? And then where is the elected officials? Matter of fact, what I'll tell you is, I would suggest strongly that the aviation people who have oversight are telling the aviation board one thing and the county commissioners another. So, where's the minutes to the meetings? Who's reviewing the minutes to the meeting? You know, they get looked at and get approved on the next agenda. Again, I don't know where this is because I couldn't find them. But this is the very first failure in oversight. Because there have been lights out on the runways, and to my understanding from one commenter, there still is. And this is a problem. This is the county's job to fix this light, not the public-private partnership. But they can't fix that, or they haven't fixed it. Why? Because our aviation sector is poorly led by this bureaucrat. Then you look at the fact that we had a broken fuel meter at the Crystal River Airport. Now, as per the contract, the fixed-based operator must provide fuel to the airplanes. It doesn't say it can take a day off. Okay? It doesn't say, hey, you know what, wait a couple months. It literally says you have to do this. Where was the county's oversight? Did the county not crack down on this issue? And if not, why not? Then you look at the airport over in Inverness. So Bayflight has an area where they land and they park their helicopter there. They also refuel there. And, well, periodically the refuel has the tendency when they pull out to drop some fuel on the ground. Not unheard of, right? And it was starting to deteriorate the ground underneath the helicopter, becoming a hazard. Where was our oversight of that? Now, to my understanding from, well, people who are dealing with the process, Bayflight basically was seriously considering not parking their helicopter anymore because this was potentially a hazard. Where was our county in this process? How quickly did they repair this process? Mind you, it's the county, so I'm pretty sure they can get things through the permitting process. Who ended up fixing it, and how long did it take to fix? Again, where was the oversight? This is the county's job. Safe bay flights in Citrus County? Yes, we want that. And the county not paying attention and allowing fueling over a standard piece of pavement when technically that fuel should be over a specific different kind of element like concrete? Again, where's our county oversight? Why is the county not looking at that or even aware of that? Are our county aviation department leaders expert on aviation? Because if so, how did they allow for things like that to happen? Then you look at the contracts between the two different airports and how much each pays. The reality is, what I found out, and it's different from what I thought I knew, they have been paying the same contractual fee in Crystal River since 2007. $3,200 a month. The M&S airport is currently paying over $4,000 and has an annual consumer price index adjustment. The one that is over in Crystal River does not. How did our aviation department write this contract for them to sign? Then you look at the cost of the hangars. There is no formula based on what to charge for that hangar. They basically came up with a number out of thin air. Really, that's how they did our cost on these hangars. And then they made a change in reference to the CPI up to 10%. Now, this is a bit ago, but it's still a factor. Who approved that? Nobody. The county could just do whatever they damn well want. The aviation people knew about it because they got an email, but the county commissioners never heard about it. How things are being run at the airport in reference to county staff, our aviation department, well, it's just coming to light that it's getting worse and worse, not better and better. And worse, the county, who, well, isn't getting all the information from the aviation sector in the county government and is not having proper oversight by the county administrator of the aviation sector. The aviation department has failed, but our elected officials want to take over the FBO, the fixed base operator. It's basically alluded to by certain contacts in the community. They already can't provide basic oversight in the duty and responsibilities they have, and you want them to be the fixed base operator? Really? This is somehow going to make things better by increasing the size and scope of government when government is already failing? So the answer is no. First, I would love to see the media get off their ass and get involved and start doing some real journalism and research into this issue. But more than anything, I would like to see our elected officials sit down and go through the data, go through all the agendas, go through all of the issues the community has had. Go back and watch the aviation advisory boards. I'll bet the county commissioners, even our aviation expert, is not watching the aviation advisory board. Go back over the last 2 years and watch these meetings. Just put them on in the background and watch the meetings. And what you find is there have been complaints and elements raised and basically ignored, from lights to other issues. So we need to be very aware that government, when given an opportunity, will grow. And as exampled by the fact that the county wants to take over the fixed base operator and run the airport, the worst thing is it is being supported by elected officials who really don't even know what's going on. Now, as I harp on bureaucrats on a regular basis, and man, from the land development department to the issue of creating this county philosophy of running an airport without proper supervision, I mean, I am always harping on bureaucrats. Well, almost always. So I gave one gentleman, Walt Eastman, a pat on the back. Said, hey, you know what? Walt did a great job, found ways to save money. Good. And there's some others who have done good in the past. But here's the problem I have. There are really good employees that are working under these bureaucrats, and they have a hard job dealing with, well, people like me. And the truth is, I don't try to point out what the individual worker does, because if the individual worker does a good job, good. But if they're doing a bad job, or if they're unaware of changes, or they haven't been educated enough on the processes of government or the new regulations or the new policies, it's not their fault, because it's the bureaucrat's job to ensure that county staff is properly educated, that they're properly informed, that they take some time to ensure that the workforce has the best knowledge and the best processes to deal the best with the citizens. So when you run into an individual in the county staff who is not a bureaucrat, if they stink, it is that department head's fault. It is the county administrator's fault. And it's sad because, as I've presented before, there are numbers of examples. Our county commissioners need to start paying attention, because, yes, it does directly affect how people live in this county, and it also should directly affect how our elected officials lead. How would you rate the elected officials? So from city councils to county commission, to school board, to state, to federal. Okay. Now, of course, look, the progressives are going to get on here and go, Trump's a complete failure and stuff like that. I get it, right? But admittedly, let's give you a scope on how to rate them. So you can put this in the comment, all the different elected officials. And if you mention one on a board, mention all of them. Don't just mention one. Don't say, this commissioner never reads statute, she's the dumbest one out there. That's not what we're looking for. I challenge you to rate the elected officials. And the reason I do this is because this will actually make you start doing some research and give you base expectations of what they should and shouldn't be doing. So how would you rate, again, from school board to state to Congress to city council to county commission, all of them, how would you rate them on follow-up? If you send an email, do they follow up with real answers? If you call them, do they call back? If you ask for a meeting, do they facilitate that meeting with you, or do they pawn you off on staff? On community involvement, do they just go to the right fundraisers? Or do they maybe have some blog that they put out there so you'll read and think they're actually doing something? Or do they actually get involved in the community? The job is to represent the community. Are they involved in it? So how would you rate them on involvement in the community? On fiscal decisions, do they make sound fiscal decisions? We know we have some commissioners and some city councils and school board members. They basically get advised by staff, and staff says, yes, we need this. Okay, yes, I agree. Boom. Okay. That's basically not a fiscal decision. That is basically doing whatever the staff tells you to do. See, that needs to change. And you need to rate them on that. Let's think about this. What policy did they create that's best for the citizens, that improve the life of the citizens? So I'll give you an example. I supported policy and ordinance change that allowed more FFA and 4-H to be done in different areas because they were zoned out of it. So this changed the zoning that allowed more people to do more of these projects, right? So it's an example. They can be done. What have they done to the benefit of the citizens? And I don't mean just got more money for cops and things like that, or, fixed the sidewalk. I mean, what actual policies did they do to create things that will make it better for citizens. And last but not least, and this is probably the most important, how knowledgeable is the elected official on the policy? I mean, can they deep dive on the issues? I tell you, there's one elected official, and whether you like the individual or don't, the person can discuss the details of the policy, the who, what, where, why, and when, the intended and potential unintended consequences. I rate that person on that issue in particular very high. So maybe you don't want to do everybody. So maybe you're a city council focused individual. Okay, of the city council people, rate them on the things I just described. Do they do follow up? Are they community involved? Are they good on fiscal decisions? Are they citizen focused when they make policy? And do they have knowledge of the policy when they make decisions? So city council, county commission, school board, state rep, state senator, congressman, and yeah, sure, go ahead and put the president in there too. Go ahead and rate them. I would love to see the comments. Matter of fact, if you want to see the comments blow up, put that in there, because there's going to be people that disagree with you. And my suggestion is this: do not be crass. There are people I think very highly of that I would rate, well, relatively low. Okay? So don't make it personal. But this will give an indicator to the elected officials that they need to do better. Who is our policy champion for Citrus County? I would love to know that. Who is our fiscal champion for Citrus County? I would love to know that. And when I say that, I mean of all the elected officials. This will help, of course, come election time. Or maybe it won't. You know, election time is coming up. People are starting to run for office, and you have to ask simple questions. So as a person running for re-election, you have to ask, well, what did you do? So like we had one person who was in office, and it was basically people getting physically abused when that individual's on the board. And what was the policy they did to make sure that physical abuse of adults by staff would never happen again? Where's the policy? Did you do something about that? This is an example of where you can start looking into all of the different things that the elected officials have done. And mind you, that's a little unfair, you'll say, but it is also a fact that elected officials, current elected officials, have what's called the benefit of incumbency. If you're currently elected, you have the benefit of incumbency, especially, and this is something that a lot of people don't know, the less you do in government, the better the chance of re-election. Now, you may not have known that. Well, they're quiet, they're peaceful, they never start any trouble. Okay, so an incumbent elected official who does very little to nothing is very likely to get reelected. How's that for working for you, right? But then also, let's ask the people who are candidates for the first time, who are running for office, and who knows, maybe some people who are running for office again, but people who are running for office to replace the current elected officials, what will you do? Right? Because we can't ask them, what did you do? We have to ask them, what will you do? And of course, you can ask the current elected officials the same question. If you are reelected, what will you do other than the same exact thing you've been doing? But the people who are running for office need to read the federal code of regulation on issues that deal with Citrus County, either in education, city council, county commissioner, wherever. But also, more specifically, the state statutes, because that's where a lot of the impact comes into the county. But also the county ordinance. So has the individual brought up the Citrus County ordinance and started to go through all of that? And then last but not least, the administrative regulations that tell the staff how to implement the ordinance. Have they read that? And let me tell you, as somebody who read all these things, it is not easy, but it's doable. If you are in office, you should at least understand it at a basic level, and many don't. And if you're running for office, you need to understand those things to be able to suggest changes and to show voters that you're a capable and competent candidate. Let's not make this a popularity contest, because I can tell you this is already happening. People are already going, oh, this person's wonderful. Absolutely. You have my support. Why? Give examples. Don't say, well, they work really hard for us. Okay. What ordinance did they change? What saving did they do? Need to ask real questions. We need to ask both the candidates, either incumbents running for re-election or the new candidates, do you believe that this is a representative republic? Because that will show you how they believe in engaging. Or do you believe that it's a democracy? But the most important thing is, do not be an uninformed voter in Citrus County. Between Google, between ChatGPT, Grok, and all these other AIs, you literally can go back and look over the last 4-year agendas for all these offices to see the issues that have been important, that you can then either ask the incumbent, why did you vote this way or that way, spend it this way or that way, or ask the candidate, would you have done X, Y, or Z on this? And if not, what would you have done differently? The data is out there. The ability to glean that data is out there. We no longer have to be uninformed voters. Use technology, get smart, and start forcing the candidates to answer real questions. Stop letting it be a popularity contest. Of all the elected officials in Citrus County, we're talking about from Congress all the way down to the Mosquito Control Board, who has the young people's future in mind? And by that, I don't mean who created a great policy. You see, one of the things that's unique about government is the power of the position of an elected official. Do you know that there is the ability to create bright future credit for young people by working with government? It's in the statute. I know. We passed it when I was in office. Students right now can get involved with government and basically get bright future hours. Let's say they're leaders and they want to know more about how to make a difference in their community, regardless of philosophy. They can basically come in and intern with the county, with the cities, with the member of Congress, with the Mosquito Control Board. We could get young people involved. I know when I was a state rep and county commissioner, I had interns. And some of these people have gone to law school. Some of these people have studied economics. And some of these people are working in great positions in this nation and have a bright future. And some of them, even better, are just really informed voters. But we need to take the opportunity that is out there and start creating the next generation of leaders by getting them involved in the process, having them come in and intern and not answer the phone or type up a simple little paper. Get them actually involved. I had the intern who was working for me start to work with the county agencies, the county departments, to create the opportunity to improve the Central Ridge Park, the park that's down by Lake Beverly in Beverly Hills. That individual was working with county staff. Imagine the knowledge that that individual gleaned. I had another one who basically helped move a water marker over in Homosassa, and that young individual potentially made it safer, right? Now, I could have done it or I could have had the staff do it. But think about it. That individual, one, has more buy-in in the community. Two, that individual grew to understand a lot more about their government. There is no reason not to have young people intern in this government. If you're an elected official, if you're a department head, you can do it. The students benefit. The law says clearly that they can benefit from this. This counts as hours. You write down the hours, there's a proper format. The guidance counselors can tell them what to look for and stuff, and you can help develop the next generation of leaders. But here's the funny thing. Nobody's doing it. Hey guys, girls, elected officials, pay attention. If you're really for the next generation, get them involved, help develop the next leaders, and maybe even help them with their chance on bright futures.